I was basically a loner, you know, as a kid. I had friends and acquaintances, but I kept to myself all the time. And I remember actually being sat down and asked to try and express myself emotionally. I never could do it. It was like really, really hard for me to express myself in that way. Still to this day, it's like that. But with guitar, it really became a vehicle for me to channel whatever emotion was going on with me, you know? So with volume and electric guitar, and, you know. I guess it was destined, you know, because once I figured it out, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I was born in England, and I was definitely thrown headfirst into a very creative environment. My dad was super creative, but my mom was super creative. There was a lot of artistic stuff going on having to do with painting and drawing or sketching and illustration. My dad used to paint my hard-boiled eggs every morning before he, you know, to paint faces on them and stuff. My dad and I would take the train into London. We'd go to the Natural History Museum, go to the Art Museum, and we go to the shopping sort of areas, Portobello Road and places like that. I just loved all the busyness of it. It was a great adventure for me. I had a lot of real freedom as a kid. So I would just be in the clouds or, you know, daydreaming and doodling and drawing all the time.
One day, his mom tells me, you've got to go down and see his teacher. They're not happy with him. So I trot down and say, okay, what's the problem? And oh, he doesn't pay attention. All he wants to do is look out the windows or draw all the time. And I said, well, what's the matter with that? And I swear she said this, you can't spend your whole life drawing. And I said, well, someone should tell Picasso that.
We moved to the States. Los Angeles was this creative oasis at the time, you know, late 60s, early 70s. My dad started working for Asylum, doing album cover jackets. And that was a major thing back then. I mean, just maverick, different concepts going into how this record was going to be packaged. And then my mom was designing clothes for any number of entertainers of the day. Carly Simon, Linda Ronstadt, James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Sonny and Cher.
When we were doing album covers, we would hang with the act in the recording studio for the week or two that it would, and I always took him every night. I think maybe an imprinting there would be, at some point, you realize that this is a legitimate lifestyle.
The music was absorbed. It was like the holy grail. You know, I think I had an ear for music in that sense, you know, but didn't have any aspirations to do anything about it.
I first met Slash, it was like 1976. I was in the 5th grade. He was quiet, he wore moccasins, he just kind of kept himself. He was just a good kid, and you know, we'd hang out, we'd ride BMX bikes together, and when we first started riding BMX, he barely even knew how to ride a 2-wheel bike. And within like minutes, literally, I mean, he caught on so quick. When we go to the track, he'd do outrageous tricks off jumps, things that you'd see in X Games today, where in 1978, they weren't really doing.
The one sort of trait that I have is I'm very focused. So if I like something and I'm into it, I can focus on it 100%, which means I don't have a better knack for it than anybody else, but I'll apply myself as much as I have to get it to work for me, you know. And then when I picked up the guitar, it was the same kind of thing. The first time I put like 3 or 4 notes together that sounded like rock and roll, you know, it was just like the heavens parted. There was that that choral that happens. And within that 24-hour period, the bike went out the window and just became a mode of transportation. And the guitar was always hanging on my back. And so that became my thing. You know, started putting bands together, and the musicians that I would find that could play, they all thought I was insane. So I was really driven, you know, but I didn't know where I was going to go with it. It was sort of like Rebel Without a Cause.
He would rip something out and you'd get like goosebumps. I knew that there's a monster hiding in this, and we just have to bring it out so the world can see what he's capable of doing.
A lot of what was going on in West Hollywood at that time, it was this very superficial, soulless kind of image, and the music didn't back it up. I didn't like hanging out up there, so it was funny, you know, not long after that, that I would be in a band that was the antithesis of all that, but right rooted in the middle of it, you know, sort of like the Antichrist of the neighborhood.
Had different combinations of us in different bands, you know, throughout the time we were coming up and getting it together. And
yeah, there
was
would
like
be one or two of the same guys.
We couldn't, there was nobody else in LA we could have played with, so it was inevitable that the five of us would get together.
When Guns formed, it was just like the first three chords we played. I'm like, oh my God, that thing we've all been looking for. I'd played with a lot of guitar players up to that point. I was in a ton of punk rock bands. Slash had a fuller, more natural electric guitar sound than what was the norm at that time.
Guns N' Roses represented to me a very straight up, in-your-face, honest rock and roll band that was raw and brutal and, you know, said whatever it wanted to say, and, you know, all those different sort of dangerous elements about a rock and roll band. And I lived by that. We always had that confidence of knowing that we were the most kick-ass band. When Guns finally got a record deal, I knew what I wanted to sound like, and I went in to do basic tracks, which are scratch tracks anyway, but went in to do those and listened to those guitars on the monitors. I was like, oh, I need to get a guitar. I need to get this together because that sounds horrible, you know.
He was going through a major rotation of guitars, and I went up to the studio where they were doing overdubs one day, and as I pulled up to the studio, I looked and I went, oh, hello, because there was an SG stuck next first through the windscreen of the rental van. And at that point, I got a clear message he was having a tough time finding a sound, and he was genuinely frustrated.
Alan gave me this Les Paul and said, try this. And it was a beautiful 59 flame top, and it wasn't even made by Gibson, but it looked like the real thing. I went through about 3 or 4 Marshall heads and found the one that sounded right with that guitar, and it was just like, and that was it.
He found what he was looking for, and the, you know, of course, with Axl's voice, we started developing our sound. The songs were aggressive, and, you know, a bunch of people went, yeah, this speaks to us.
Just like Wheaties, Guns N' Roses, you gotta have it, man.
They're just the best band ever.
It was exciting on one hand because of the audience factor, But the rest of it was, you know, I mean, it was a really hard time for us as well, you know, trying to navigate this whole thing.
Which car? Which car? Right here, bud. Right here. Right here.
And there was internal stuff, and there was business stuff, and there was manager stuff, and there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and all these different factors that sort of helped bring a lot of things to a head. I sort of like quit the job without knowing where I was going to work next.
In a fax sent to MTV News late Tuesday night, frontman Axl Rose announced that his longtime partner and guitarist Slash was out of the band, and that the
That was a pretty depressing and disappointing period. After having been in Guns N' Roses for so long, there was you know, a lot of pressure off of my shoulders. There'd been so much negative stuff leading up into that I just dispelled all of it. And I was just sort of enjoying that freedom.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carol King.
He started getting calls from well-known musicians, like, let's get that Slash guy on the record. He was the guy. I mean, he was youth and aggression in guitar playing and soul. You know, soul and all of that. He was becoming the iconic guy that personified that great rock and roll guitar player.
It was really very flattering to be able to work with people that I was, in a lot of cases, sort of starstruck by. But it was also really a lot of fun to be able to sort of, by the seat of your pants, walk in a room and look like you knew what you were doing and sort of adapt to these different situations. And trying to infuse a certain kind of rock and roll guitar into what otherwise wouldn't have it.
He does talk through his instrument, and he's looking for other people who can talk back to him. What I found fascinating was the extraordinary broadness of artists, where you go from Michael Jackson to B.B. King to Carole King. He plays with everybody.
Slash is kind of like the rock and roll cat in the hat. People are attracted to Slash because they love his guitar playing, but also they love his image. Even before he wore the top hat, just with the curly hair and the way he dressed, he just looked different. The top hat really took him to another level.
He's very identifiable. Not just guitar playing, but his look. There's no denying the hat. It's finally to that point, like he's more recognizable than some of our heroes. Like the biggest thing I saw with him was Guitar Hero. That was huge. And there was, you know, he was Slash. Everybody knew him as Slash and the top hat and stuff. But he was also like, he was the guy on that game that all these kids were playing. And I think it overwhelmed him.
I think I wasn't very conscious of it as an image when it was becoming an image, you know? It was more just my thing. I found the top hat in a store on Melrose. I tried it on, and I looked in the mirror, and I thought, this is cool. And it just became sort of a fixture that I felt comfortable in. I would more or less hide behind it, you know? Because when I'm playing on stage, as much as I'm into being up there, I avoid eye contact. I keep my hair in my face. I don't want to interact with the audience on that level. It freaks me out. So the top hat was great, just pull it all down. And I remember when I started working for Michael, I started to get the distinct idea that he was very much into my image. And I remember showing up without my top hat one time. And he's like, hey, where's your hat? I was like, I didn't bring it. Nothing else was said, but I could see the look of dejection in his eyes. You know? And it was becoming clearer and clearer to me over time that that part of my sort of persona, which was very natural, but still part of a persona, was not really gelling with any ambitions that I had to do anything serious. It was sort of like token, stoner, alcoholic guitar player, lots of fun, but whether or not we're going to be able to go the next step with him, I don't know what it was, but I definitely sensed it. Then with Velvet Revolver happened, there was a lot of alcohol and there was the struggle with drugs, and really took myself down to my worst bottom and really went back and re-experienced all the that I used to do in the 80s. At that point, I actually saw a little bit into the future. I didn't want to be sort of in a situation where like you just kept going in reverse all the time. So when I got clean, that was when I started to sit down and go, okay, what am I going to do? I've done so much session work, and what happens is whenever you go and play on somebody else's record, for that minute that you're in the studio together, you have this whole thing going on, and it is great. And then the record's done, and off they go with it. And it sort of takes a piece of you with them. And so I've been thinking about doing a record where I got different people to work on my record. I started putting together demos for what would be the Slash solo record. And then I'd listen to them and think, who would sound good singing this song? And that was basically what dictated the choice of singer. It was tough because I had to call people up and go, look, I'm making a record, here's the music, do you want to listen to it?
All right, we're recording now.
It's not easy to sing next to Alice Cooper, by the way, so.
A lot of these people are so busy, and it was nerve-wracking to pick up the phone and call Ian Astbury to do that, or Ozzy, you know. And
This record better sell.
all in all, there was probably 20 some odd singers.
Something like that, that's beautiful.
And everybody was really great to work with, regardless of whatever reputation they had out there. So the record's basically done, but I still have these 2 songs. I haven't figured out who should sing them. And it was right around that time that I've been hearing about Miles Kennedy.
He sent this demo of music. It was a fully arranged and very realized vision that he had, and I had the luxury of putting the melody and the lyric to it, which was really cool because the way he writes his chord progressions, the way he puts things together, it really lends themselves to good melodies.
A few days later, he sent back the song with vocals on it, and I'm listening to it. I was here when I was listening to it, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And so we did the studio version of Starlight.
I remember we took a break and went outside, and Slash was just beaming. He just had this big grin. He was like, this is really fun. And he was like, you know, what if I decided to tour this? Would you be up for singing, you know, for a few months? I was like, sure. Then I think the wheels started spinning that maybe it would be something more permanent.
That's actually been like a godsend, because the bands I've been in tend to be very complicated. And for me, it's about simplifying everything and just making it about music. And so this has been exactly that. Really amazing players, really talented guys who all they want to do is play.
He's very hungry to continue to grow and evolve. He would kill me if he heard me say this, but I think there's a certain amount of genius there, and he's far too humble to accept that.
There's certain musicians that are just born with it, you know, and it makes the rest of us like kind of jealous. Like, oh, that was in you. Like, so when you picked up the guitar, it was already there.
Slash is definitely the natural because he is good at everything he does. If you arm wrestled him, you were done. If he played guitar, he played it better than you. If he rode a bike, he did things that you couldn't do. I don't think he knows how to do a bad job.
I've seen him pass out. I've never seen him phone it in. He plays like a mother. Can I use that language?
I'm really very happy about what it is that I'm doing, what it is that I have done up to this point. All the good and the bad that's gone on ever since I was a little kid to get to where we are right now. I wouldn't change anything. I've been into horror as long as I've been into music. I was always attracted to scary stuff, creepy stuff, and I jumped at the chance to put the music together for Universal Studios' Clown Maze. This is sort of something that I just spontaneously did for the fun of it. And I love the end result of a good visual with the right music. I mean, this is uniquely twisted. I think in that sense, I haven't grown up.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Dunn from Banger Films, and thanks for watching the Rock Icons episode on Slash. You know, one of the highlights for me in creating this series is that I get to meet the people that made the icon, and I get to figure out where the DNA actually comes from. And I gotta say, meeting Slash's dad was super cool. I thought my dad was cool, but realized that no, Slash's dad is the coolest. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next.